Hello everyone, and welcome all of you to Nikky Lyle Creative Presents with Industry Leaders, where today I'm joined by Charlotte and Danny, the creative team. Thank you so much for joining me, guys. Yeah, welcome both of you.
Hiya, thanks so much for having us.
So could you quickly, anyone, I know most people that here know you, but could you just quickly introduce yourselves and your background to us, please?
Sure. So I'm Charlotte, obviously. It's hard to introduce ourselves with like not being actually with Danny, but so yeah, I'm Charlotte. I'm the copywriter. We work in the creative team, and then...
I'm Danny, creative team, and I'm the art director. But we're kind of a bit of both, a bit hybrid team, really. So yeah.
And we currently work at Dark Horses, which is a sports marketing agency. So we work basically on creative campaigns for anything that sort of operates in the sport world. So like clients like Nissan and Peloton and Panini and Home Run and some other bits. But we can talk a bit more about that as we go on.
Okay. Right, so we're going to dive into the questions. So at what point did you decide that you wanted to become a creative?
I mean, I'd studied graphic design at A-level and photography, and I really loved them. I had the typical father that always told me I couldn't go to uni and do a creative subject. I had to go do an academic subject. So there were points where I was looking to go to university to study geography and photography. That didn't ever fall through, thank God. And then I came across a course because of one of my tutors at college, for the University of Creative Arts, and it was advertising, brand communication. And he was like, look, I think you'll love this. Advertising is probably your thing. And at the time, I just thought advertising was making moving posters. So I genuinely thought that's what my career, my future would be. It's just, cool, I get to make the Avengers movie poster one day. I understand it's not. But yeah, that's kind of how I got there and how I kind of ended up in the creative industries. I always knew it was going to be creative at some point, but
yeah. And then so for me it was kind of like I always found in school like I was always like art was my favorite subject. I did graphic design at GCSE, and then I kind of got to that point where I needed to do like A levels, and I just really didn't like all the academic subjects, but my school was very much like you need to do like maths and science, and it was very much all of my friends wanted to do kind of like, I don't know, very different jobs to what I wanted to do, and I just didn't really know what to do. And this is like dead truth, but I was watching Friends, and I feel like I've told this story a million times, but the one when Chandler decides he wants to change his career, and Monica organizes that thing, and it's like, hey, advertising, and that was the point where I was like deciding whether to do like A levels or to go to college. And at that point I was like, oh, advertising, that actually sounds quite interesting, because creativity is all I know, and I kind of had a bit of a business mind, but I didn't want to, like, school was just telling me if you want to do creative subject you just have to be an art teacher and artist, and I was like, well, I don't want to do either of those. So yeah, Chandler definitely introduced me to advertising, and then I literally just googled advertising courses and I found the one where I met Danny. So yeah, that's kind of what made me do it.
Okay, that's brilliant. I love that story. But Chandler from Friends helped you discover that that's what the career path you wanted to take.
Literally, it's so good.
And so you've been a creative team for 10 years, which is really impressive. How did you meet?
well, yeah, as mentioned, University for the Creative Arts in Farnham, tiny little town, not much there other than a few pubs and everything. But yeah, no, we met there on the same course, and we were told, I think, in year one that at some point you have to have a creative partner to work in the advertising industry. And yeah, we just we clicked, and like I think we've both had and still have to this day kind of a very similar outset or mindset of where we kind of want to go. And I think that is something we managed to identify in each other. And I think it was halfway through first year or towards the end of the first year is when we started kind of being like, okay, why don't we try working together? We're going to have to be a creative partner up at some point. Let's see how it goes. And the rest is...
It's so funny. It's kind of like, I feel like when we first started working together, it's kind of a bit like a relationship story, because both of us were working with other people. And then a mutual friend of ours was like, hey, you guys are really similar, like you've got similar mindsets, you should potentially work together. but then we had to like break up with the other people we were working with just at university, and it was all very dramatic. Obviously the best decision we've ever made, because this is both of our longest relationships ever. But yeah, no, it definitely just it was great that we've just had this kind of common sort of shared goal of like, we both were really driven, we were really at university to get a job at the end. It was kind of, we both had the same kind of objectives in mind, so that's been really good.
You know, I actually studied at the Canterbury campus, the same
wow.
unit. Yeah, but mine was CIAD, so I studied there before you guys, and then we merged with Farnham and all the rest.
Oh, yeah.
Oh my god, that's so cool. Yeah, it's really good uni. Like, it's so small, and I feel like Farnham was such a tiny place to have gone to university. If I don't know if anyone watching this knows of it, but it's a little town in Surrey, and its population is students and old people, I think. But no, it's lovely. It's good uni.
Pubs,
yeah, some good pubs.
And so, do you have any advice for juniors starting out in the industry? Who are also looking for their other half. Sorry, I mean to specify. So, someone that's looking for someone to join, find their creative team soulmate. What advice would you give those at a junior level?
I think, like, as Charlotte said, it's kind of like a relationship. But I think, like, you have to find someone that you, number one, get along with. And I think for us, like, having that mindset of a similar mindset, but not completely the same, is a really good thing to have, because that is the thing that gels you together and makes you work as a team together. Like, there are things that, like, Charlotte is the copywriter because I'm dyslexic and my copy's not great. Doesn't mean I can't attempt to write things. And like, there are times where my art direction is not working, and Charlotte would go, "Why not this?" And so I think you have to understand that in a team, maybe you're not just going to be art director, and you can't just go, "No, I just draw things." Like, I think that you have to gel together to kind of make it work. You know, it is a big thing. Like, kind of, you know, if you're going to go into the industry and work with this person for at least the next few years, like, you have to work as a team. And I think, like, if you don't work as a team, it's hard without that gel, and people can see it sometimes. But
yeah, you've got to kind of try and like learn to, and I think like we've obviously been working together a long time, so we've got good at this, but you've just got to learn to not take offense. And I think with like creativity is so subjective, like you might come up with an idea and the other person might not like it, or vice versa. So you've just got to learn to kind of not like necessarily be like you're wrong, but just talk about it and get to a sort of decision together. So I think it's really important that when you're looking for someone to work with, you just talk about, not just about work, but just generally, and just see how your conversation can go, because you're going to need to talk to that person like all the time about everything. So you need to sort of see that you can have a discussion and you can disagree on stuff and not get offended. Because the amount of times we still disagree on things, and then I'm sure both of us are equally livid quietly, but we know that we're not actually going to get annoyed at each other, because it is just a difference of opinion, and ultimately we just want to get to the best work, and it always does end up like that. But also, like, I think if you're looking for someone like practically, like we've got through the Young Creative Council, there's a website called singlecreatives.com where you can go and you can put yourself up there as a single creative and find someone, very much like dating. We also, like, usually when we're not in this unusual world, we do single mingles, which are basically like speed dating nights but for creative. So they're really good to come to. There's Facebook groups called like Copy Seeks Art and Art Seeks Copy, which is equivalent of single creatives, which is really good as well. And then I also think, like, obviously you spoke to Pip yesterday, but the Dots is a really great place to meet creatives. And also now that they've got the function that you can ask questions and broadcast stuff, you can say like, "Hi, I'm a copywriter, I'm looking for someone to work with, to collaborate with." And I think that if you've got a profile on the Dots, it's a really good place to start in terms of finding other people.
Yeah, that is brilliant that you run those events where people can meet, because I always feel it for like junior creatives that are A, looking for work, B, looking for their creative partner, soulmate, you know, and it's a big decision as well, especially when you guys have been together for 10 years working on stuff, and how you've managed to keep going so long, and that initial introduction. It's great that there are places out there where people can meet and connect. So what have been your career highlights so far?
Well, there's like, I think there's quite a few, but there's some recent ones that have been really like I never would have thought possible. Last week or the week before, we did a sort of webinar similar to this, but with loads of Olympians and Paralympians through the Women's Sports Trust, because the Women's Sports Trust is one of our clients, and they one of our friends that helps runs it, she was like, what you're doing with Badass.gal and creativity is really sort of interesting to talk about in the sport world, because obviously we work in sport and there's a lot of similarities in between the issues that face the creative industries versus the issues that face people in sport. So we actually did a presentation to like 20 or 30 Olympic medal like holders and Paralympic medal holders, and telling them about creativity and about us. And I just felt like if someone had told 16-year-old me playing netball that I would be doing a presentation to sort of Olympians, then I would never believe that. So that's mad that like our career has taken us to be able to give advice to people like that. Work wise, like I think we've been really lucky to work on some of like the biggest household names. Like we've done some like work for Kellogg's, which is obviously one of like the oldest brands that I can remember having when I was a child, to be able to make ads for that. And we worked with Pep Guardiola recently, the Man City manager, so that was amazing to be able to meet him and do some work with him. So yeah, like there's been tons of stuff that I just think advertising is one of those careers that it can go in so many different directions. One minute you're doing this, next minute you're doing that, and the people you meet along the way, whether or not it's famous people or just really amazing inspirational people like Pip yesterday, like we've met her a bunch of times in our career, and every time I speak to her I'm just like, oh my god, this is a highlight.
I also think a bit of a highlight as well is now being where we are, even over the last 5 years especially, just being able to give back. You know, go through the Young Creative Council, we do numerous talks at universities, and I think it's so important to do, but has been a really great thing, because now the people that come out of universities have a friendly face that they can go, hey, can we have a chat? Can we have a crit? And we're like, yeah, okay, let's do this, and then we can put them on to the next person, and so on and so on. So yeah, I think that. Also, like we worked on a show when we first started in the industry, not so glamorous, but it got us into like a number of places. Like I went to the Ferrari garage when we were in year 1 in Italy, and that was something that, again, like you just kind of never do. So yeah, there have been many a highlight throughout all of it. And
then I must say another one recently, we've got into kind of product development, and we're launching a sports nutrition bar at Dark Horses. So we've done everything from working on the recipe of the bar. Danny's got some there. Prop. The recipe of the bar, the branding, the kind of the campaign, and that's been incredible to kind of go from sort of idea to actually creating a product which we're going to sell. So like I say, advertising every day is very different, and I think I feel incredibly lucky to be able to do all of these different things.
Yeah, no, that sounds really cool. And we're so lucky in the industry that we have Young Creative Council, actually, because I first came across you guys when I was at D&AD, New Blood, and there is a huge disconnect in the industry between people graduating and then getting jobs. It's huge. And the amount of grads that I meet that are like, right, we finished our degree, we're at D&AD, we've got our grad show up, we're going to be snapped up by the industry. And you're like, oh, hang on a minute. Now you've got to prepare yourself for the second part of the race, which is actually really getting a job. And that's the awesome thing about Young Creative Council, is that you can guide them through this. So anyone that's watching at the moment, could you tell us a bit more about Young Creative Council if they don't know about them, or how they can reach out and have that support?
Yeah, I mean, so we kind of live by the motto that we kind of bridge the gap between university and the industry, because as you said, like, yeah, there's just a big disconnect, and a lot of the people that we've helped get into placement will be on placement for 3 months, and they'll turn around to us and be like, we've learned more in 3 months than we learned in 3 years of university, which is crazy. That's not saying don't go to university, because university does help you. But yeah, like just through the kind of talks that we do and getting out there, I think it's so important to kind of connect them with what's going to happen, because sometimes like the syllabuses of, I can't believe I just used that word, of universities aren't up to date. So like you still will get taught a lot about print and TV, and that's still very valid, but the way a lot of clients now work and want to work is through social. So through something that they do daily, and being able to understand to bring that to their work, that's their massive kind of buy-in type thing. But yeah, I think, yeah, as you say, like, it's the hard work really does start. It doesn't stop the minute you graduate. It's kind of that same mentality that you've gone through with university of kind of, I'm going to get out, I'm going to get a job. You need to keep going. I'm going to get a job, and no one should feel down off the back of it that you might not walk out straight away and get a job. Like, I think it took us 6 months, 8 months after graduating to get a job, and then how we found that was through Twitter. So there are multiple ways of doing it, but for us, like, we've got, I think we have a core team of 8 people with the YCC, which any of them you can contact at any time. We might not reply straight away, but hey, we'll get back at some point. And then we've also created a Crit Me list, which is a list of industry people that are willing to be put on the list to give you a book crit. So you can graduate, hopefully before you graduate, you come down to London, Manchester. I think we have some people up in Edinburgh as well, that you can just contact and go get a book crit to kind of start conversations happening. I think it's probably important to say that when you go into a book crit, you aren't going to automatically get given a placement straight away. Like, sometimes it might happen, but the likelihood is you have to go away, do some work, go back and kind of show that you're really willing, because it's a little bit tough. But did that answer the question?
No, it did. It was really good. Thank you. And going back to that disconnect again, I've also said to universities that it would be good to have someone speaking to students whilst they're actually doing their degree and coaching them, and you get all sorts of different portfolios coming out of uni, and some grads will say to me, our tutors didn't even address our portfolios. It was more about see what work you can produce and what you can do, and what I've always been about is, okay, how can we get you a job? You've just spent all this money, all this time on this degree, how are you going to get hired by, and what area do you want to work in as well? Because it could be advertising, it could be branding, it could be packaging, it could be for a tech company. There's all these areas of design, and it's making juniors aware of that when they're studying their degrees, what area they could go into afterwards. Could you tell us a bit more about the crits that Andy Peel's been running at the moment as well?
Yeah, so Andy, who's the sort of main director of the YCC, he's been in it the longest and he does most of the hard work. He set up Co-Video Crits, aptly named, and it's basically like a weekly crit on a Tuesday on Zoom where a bunch of people from the industry log on, and then creatives or creative teams can log on, and then you get matched with someone and you get 15 minutes with them, and then you get matched with someone else. And it's just to do like speed crits to show your work, just ask any questions that you're thinking about, especially in this time, just things about like any worries that you've got, and they can just really give you some advice on your book. So Andy started it, I think, at the start of lockdown. He's been doing it every Tuesday. Like, we've done a couple, and it's been really good because like a lot of people from the industry have got involved, and there's a lot of different types of people you can talk to, and beforehand you can see who's there, so you can kind of they can sort of pick who they're going to help depending on what skill sets they've got and what you're looking for. But yeah, they're on Tuesdays now. He's been doing some with universities, so I know like Gloucester did one recently, and I think there's a couple other ones. So yeah, it's definitely worth looking out. It's on our on the Young Creative Council website and our Twitter. You can just sign up every week, and yeah, sometimes you get to talk to me and Danny. Other times there's lots more interesting people than us on there.
Yeah, I think also he's I think it might be tonight or tomorrow. He's got a session that is just with Mother, so it's the creatives from Mother that are up for giving book crits. I'm pretty sure it's sold out already. No surprise, but yeah, it's great because he gets, agencies approach him to be like, hey, could we just do a Mother code video.
Yeah, that's amazing. Like that, just supporting the industry, because I get so many juniors approach me, but I'm not always the best suited person at this time to be able to help everyone with all the will in the world. I wish I could, which is why I'm running these talks with you guys and giving information out there. And I think where certain creative directors or people have been furloughed, they've got more time on their hands actually, where they have been investing in juniors. And I found loads of industry leaders have been taking the time to do that. But the mother one sounds really good. But so what, if we were to summarize like 5 like key bits of advice for any juniors? People seem to love like a list or like a number of what they can take away from this session today about advice of breaking into the industry.
So I think like I actually wrote some of these down because I was trying to be prepared to get them into 5 that I actually think. But I think first one, what we always say is to, when you do your portfolio, is to inject your personality into it. And I know that's one of these things that people might not understand what that means because it's just words. But I think when we're at university or not, I think especially with things like the D&AD briefs and all the other briefs that you get given at uni, you end up with the same book. Like the amount of people that have come to us for book crit that have the same brief in their book that we saw someone the previous week. And that's not saying that they're not right, but it's just saying you need to think about the type of work that you want to do and your kind of personality, whether or not it's in the form of like some personal projects that you do on the side, or anything that kind of shows the type of creative you are and the type of work that you want to be producing, not just what your lecturer gave you or the D&AD brief that you did to try and win the award. And that's great, but I think you need to inject some of your own thinking into that, whether or not it's kind of coming up with your own problem solving exercise or some kind of brands that you're really interested in working on. And the types of ideas that you can create for them. So I think that's kind of one of the biggest pieces of advice I would say. And then another thing that I think is often, like, we get emails like on a daily basis from young creatives, and like you say, with everyone in the world, we would love to help everyone and we try our best, but I think sometimes emails get lost, or I'll forget, or like this week I'm on holiday, so like next week when I get back to work I might have forgotten if there was an email in my inbox last week. And I just think, as cliche as it sounds, don't give up, because people like us, we will always try and reply to everyone and we will always do our best, but there's always going to be people that slip through the net. So I think if you sent an email and you haven't got replied, don't think it's because they don't like your work or they don't want to talk to you. It's probably because they're super busy. So try again, and if not, we often say sometimes not talking to the ECD or the chief creative officer or even the creative director, because they're the most busy people. Like sometimes try and get in with the junior creatives or the midweight creatives or the senior creatives and just get in and show your work, because if they think you're good, then they can introduce you to those people, and then the bosses are more likely to go on their recommendation of you guys rather than you sending about 50 emails to a creative director who's never going to see them. So yeah, just don't kind of be disheartened if it takes you a long time to get a response from the agency of your dreams, because like people are like, they're just people. They will be kind most of the time.
Yeah, I think like a point for me going off the back of that is then when you get in and you get a book crit, I think you, as I say, you might go into that crit and you might get a placement straight off the back of it. You might not, and I think that might not is the biggest percentage that you might not. But like if they give you feedback, one of the most important things is to go away and do it. And like, yes, you might have 10 other crits lined up and they might not all match up, but if there was feedback and the team, like for us, for example, we've said to numerous teams, go away, do feedback, come back and show us. The door's still open. The amount of teams that don't go away and don't do any of it are a lot more than the ones that do come back. But the ones that do come back are the ones that you remember, the ones that kind of act on it and almost literally a week later, even a few days later, come back and go, hey, we've done this, could we come back and show you? You're like, hell, yeah, of course you can. Like, yeah, I think that's something we, did, and it's a good way of kind of being.
Yeah, definitely to be proactive and just kind of show that you're keen, because ultimately we want to see how people take on feedback, because ultimately when you're working in an agency, you're going to show work to a creative director and they're going to give you feedback, so you're going to need to learn how to deal with that. So that's a really good exercise. And then I think like the thing that I like preach about all the time is Twitter. Like I think Twitter is such a amazing platform for advertising. Like obviously it's quite a negative space a lot of the time, but if you just use it for work, it can be really interesting. Like as Danny said earlier, we actually got our first job ever because a recruiter found us on Twitter and looked at our portfolio and sent us an email and said, look, there's a job going at Iris, are you interested? And we were like, oh my god. And then a few weeks later we were working there. So I think it's a really good place to follow people you're inspired by, see kind of the latest work. A lot of the time agencies hire through Twitter. They post like that they need like a creative next week, or they need an intern looking for something. So I find like that's actually quite a useful space to suss out any opportunities, especially as interns. And then like I just think it's a good place to understand what people like and what they don't like, and the types of agencies that you want to work at, get a feel for it, because you may have always dreamed about working at a certain agency, but actually it might not be the right one for you. And I think Twitter, you can get a vibe for the type of work and the type of people they are and the things that they do. And yeah, you just start to sort of become a bit of a, like known and become your own little brand on Twitter. So I think it's worth sort of having an account. Yeah,
definitely. And I think, as you say, there's lots of people in the industry that are very kind, but there's a lot of people that are very busy. So, and people respond well when you help yourself. So if we're going to actually take some time out to give you advice to help you in your career, and you go away and you help yourself by doing that, people respect that. And they're like, oh, okay, this person's really serious. They've taken that on board. They want to improve. They want to go for those jobs, those companies. Here's what you do next. But there's not a lot we can do with people that don't say take that advice on board and show a bit of kind of passion in the industry to go forwards and progress. So also the dots, me and Pip were talking about that loads yesterday, obviously, but the ask section, I don't know if anyone knows about that, but if you just ask a question, say if you're looking for some experience, and that can get a few people jobs and bookings and stuff. So that's a really powerful tool on the dots. And to make sure that you also, any platform that you use, whether it's like Twitter or your Instagram, all the dots, you put everything on there as well. So you almost don't want to make people work to get you work, like show everything so they can instantly assess, right, that person might be good there for that, but they're not going to know that about you unless you're clearly demonstrating your experience, basically. So do you know any companies that are taking on interns, or that anyone should have on their radar? I know that's tough.
Yeah, I think like I wouldn't like to start shouting out agencies' names because like, I can't be sure, but I do know that agencies are still hiring. Agencies like, I know Dark Horses, we've kept our placement team on, like they're still with us. So it isn't as complete doom and gloom as I think it kind of feels. I appreciate that it's obviously those that had placements lined up that have been cancelled and book crits, vice versa. It is a very like weird time, as they all say. But I think it's just important to still reach out to these people, to do the co-video crit stuff like this, to use the dots, to kind of still keep at it, still keep working on your portfolio. Because if you're not going to be able to work in an agency for a little while, it doesn't mean you can't work. You can still do your own ideas. You can still build. I think a portfolio is always an ever evolving beast. So you should never just think, oh, that's done, put that to the side. I think there's like, as creatives, we think of ideas like every day. I know me and Danny, like on WhatsApp, probably a couple of times a week, we'll send each other like, oh, what about this? And what about this? It's nothing to do with our day job. We're just constantly thinking. So I think in this time, if you can't be in an agency, you can still be doing stuff like that, even if it's just conceptual for your portfolio. I would hate to go back to normal in September, October, whenever the hell we get back in the office, and see a placement team and they show me their work and it's not changed since when I saw it in February. Because I just think that this time is to be used, and there's a lot of people out there like that have got the skills, like designers, photographers, videographers out there that are also kind of at home, potentially not working. So there's often the opportunity to collaborate and create some actual work. So yes, unfortunately it probably won't result in getting paid, but it could make you something incredible for your portfolio that you share, that then could get you the job. So I think as much as I'd love to tell you loads of lists of agencies, I think we're going to have to hack the system a bit.
Yeah, I do.
One of the most interesting kind of companies that have kind of come around from it. We know the guys that set up Not For Long, and like that whole collaboration that Charlotte's talking about is these guys were put on furlough, and out the back of it, they were like, well, we've got these skills, and we don't want to like just kind of sit in our houses, our flats, and not use them and like kind of let them go to waste. So they've been helping SMEs, small businesses, kind of do that by connecting everyone like that has also been furloughed, and using that collaboration to use their skills to help these businesses. And it's been amazing to see, watch, and hear from the guys how well it's going. Feels like they've actually made an agency which could be an agency out the back of everything. But yeah,
I think that's the thing, isn't it? It's with what's going on with COVID, it's those that are taking this time out to chill, and some of those that are taking the time out to upskill, and it's like the complete difference of everyone's experience in this time. And you're so right, it is all about your portfolio. That's the number one thing, more than where you studied. It's all about your work and what you've done. So let's get on to Badass.gal. So how did that come about?
Well, with the YCC, every year, like most brands, when International Women's Day comes around, we like to be part of the conversation. We actively always want to help change the industry for the better. And 2018 was no different from every other year. We had a YCC meeting about it and trying to discuss what we were going to do. Prior to that, though, I have a weird obsession with domain names, and I'd come across .gal. At the time, I was like, oh, it'd be amazing if we made a website which was amazing.gal, and it just hosted incredible female talent from around the world. Didn't really think too much further than that. Told Charlotte probably a day or two later, probably that night through WhatsApp or something like that. And she was like, yeah, it's really cool. The name's a bit lame. It should be something like Badass.gal. And I was like, yeah, no, that sounds like something. Then, as I say, we had the YCC meeting. One of the last points we addressed was International Women's Day. And I just kind of turned to Charlotte and was like, well, we've got this. And I think at first we kind of thought, oh, maybe it'd just be a day. But then we kind of looked at it and kind of got annoyed a little bit at how it is just a day, when really like this isn't like really what we want out the back of it. Needs to span over a year. It needs to span over the next 5 years to actually change things. And it won't just change things if we celebrate it one day every year. So we were like, oh, hell, you know what? We'll just create a platform which will celebrate 365 badass girls from around the creative industry, coming into the creative industry. Because we know from the classroom that about 60% are female, but that doesn't equate when it comes to the industry. And yeah, we thought, I'm not gonna lie, thought it'd be very easy from the off. Getting it started, probably the easiest part of it. Keeping it going for a whole year, it was hard, but it has been so worthwhile and absolutely amazing experience for us both, to be able to talk to such incredible talent from not just the UK, but we've had people from Berlin, Mexico, US, Spain, so it's kind of how it all kind of came around, and we're still going with it, not on a daily basis, just because what we learnt massively is there is a lot of time that we need to put into it, and working a full-time job at the same time doesn't always work out, but no, we do what we can when we can.
Yeah, I think as well, like obviously like that's kind of the story, but I think at the time that we started Badass.gal as well, there was a lot of like, I think the sort of in the gender balance in advertising was a huge topic. Everyone was talking about that. There's like obviously I think 2% of women in the world are creative directors and only like 12% in London, and there was all these stats going out there. But I think there was an article written by someone somewhere that said, oh, we'll hire women when there are women for the jobs. There aren't that many women working in advertising. And we just thought that's just not true. Like the amount of young women that we know that maybe, yeah, they're not working, but they want to be. We had all of these incredible, talented women sort of just sat there either in junior roles, not getting noticed, or waiting for junior roles that weren't getting the job offers. So we just wanted to create a database that was just like, you know what, like here's like 365 young, amazing, incredible young women. Why are you not going to hire them? So we just wanted to do something, and then it sort of snowballed into this thing which has become a bit bigger than that. And I think there's still a long way to come and things that we want to do, but our main goal was to just create this kind of place which agencies could be like, oh, actually, like there is, look at all this talent. And when they were looking for someone to work with or someone to hire or a photographer to use, they could potentially come to us to find that. And that we would be doing, I suppose, both people favors the industry and getting kind of more women in there, but also kind of agencies and sort of, and people giving them kind of jobs and helping them when they graduate, because we obviously all know how difficult it can be.
Yeah, it's amazing, Badass.gal. I remember discovering it and being like, oh my God, it's so good. It's just like the name and the branding and the identity. And then I just started electing like badass gals I knew, because where you've got that on your website and you're just like, oh, that person. I remember one of them was Cookie from Mellor and Smith that put on all those take risks. Oh, she's amazing, isn't she? She's so cool. And just that recognition of the fact she was putting on all those events for them. And yeah, it's sorry, you're gonna say something, Danny?
I was gonna say, I think you just touched on it, which we haven't, like that whole, like, it was all based on nominations as well. It's probably one of my favorite things, because I'm not saying it takes the heat off us, but I think it puts the onus on the industry to talk about the amazing talent that they are either giving crits to or sit in their office and really kind of think about it and identify it as well. I think that has been one of the best things about it, is it being a nomination based thing.
And I know myself as like a female like business owner in the creative industry, it's actually like the support of other women and platforms like that, it does spur you further forward actually, because it can be a bit of a challenge and a struggle sometimes. And so it is so empowering, those platforms. And it's good that you're both like gender advocates as well, that it was actually your idea, Danny, because I wondered if it was from you working as a creative team, working with Charlotte, if ever you saw that there were limitations or restrictions or anything due to Charlotte being female. So I just wondered how that idea did actually come about for you both.
To be honest with you, I don't think I've ever looked at Charlotte in like, oh, you are female, I am male, you know, I should be paid more or whatever. I just see us both as equal, and like I think that is part of it. It's a mindset of kind of thinking about it too much. I've lost my train of thought now. But what was I saying? Come on. What was your question? Sorry, I've completely...
No, it's kind of like just how you're like an advocate for gender equality, and I was saying, was that because of your experience of working with Charlotte and being a male and female team, etc.?
Yeah, sorry. Yeah, so yeah, I at the same time, that's not saying that I don't think Charlotte's female. I'm like, Charlotte gives me, like, she'll pick me up on things still, right? Because like, hey, I'm not gonna lie, I can say the wrong thing sometimes. I say it less than normal men, but like, you know, I think, yeah, it has, working in a female male team has been something which has helped me. I also, you know, shout out to the family. Like, I was growing up with my sister, my mum a lot, and my two female cousins, and I think that has probably helped me. But yeah, I think it's just something that comes very naturally, like that.
Mm. What do you think we can do in the industry to promote more gender equality?
I think one of the things I'd say is getting more men to events that don't sound like they're for them. So I go to events that Charlotte will be talking at, and it's happened a few times. I'll be one of maybe two, if not the only guy in the whole room, of a room full of 50 females. And it's just strange because to me, Charlotte will be talking about something which is really important for the industry, for any creative coming into the industry. Yet, because maybe there's a panel of women, guys don't turn up to it. So I think for me, one of the things I'd love to see and change, an event that we kind of potentially might be doing in November, is to kind of look at how guys get involved in the conversation a bit more, or like come into spaces where they don't feel like they should be. Like we went to can't remember the event, but it was a women in sports based event. And again, I'd probably say in a crowd of 150, 200, maybe there were 8, 10 men, which 4 of them left halfway through. And again, like one of the biggest growing sectors in sports is women in sports. So for me, it blows my mind that we haven't got more men turning up to those events to really kind of learn and hear key insights from amazing athletes or just amazing creatives from the industry. So I think for me, that is, one of the things that needs to kind of be addressed and changed a bit.
I also think I suppose that I've been quite often throughout our career the only woman in the room, like in work wise. It's happened quite a lot, and I think it's just making people feel and like educating themselves a bit to understand that, say we're in a room and someone's presenting a TV script and it's got a sort of it's sexist, or it's got some sort of stereotype in it. What I think people need to realize is it isn't the responsibility of the woman in the room or the minority in the room to call that out. It needs to be everyone. And I think this is something that we're learning, not just about like gender, but it's about everyone taking responsibility for making the change. And just because Badass.gal is called Badass.gal does not mean that men can't talk about it or nominate someone for it or come to an event hosted by it. And it's like women in sport. Just because it's women in sport doesn't mean that men can't come in. So I think it's just all about us sort of realizing that actually you need to be uncomfortable being uncomfortable to then become this sort of space that we all kind of understand each other and learn from each other. Because I think in advertising, like, we make work for society, for the world, and if we look at inside the 4 walls of where we're working, if everyone in that place looks the same, sounds the same, is from the same background, then we're going to have a problem. So I think gender is obviously a place to start, but it's kind of, me and Danny are just massive advocates for making sure that the work that we're creating is created by people, not just because obviously advertising isn't just Danny and I, there's a whole team of us. We need to be looking and thinking about from every different perspective. So I think, there's obviously like a huge amount of work to do, but it all does start with people just realizing that they can do stuff rather than wait for someone else to do it.
I think as well, I've just, again, on Charlotte's point, like, I am a male co-founder of effectively what sounds like a girl group, but I'm very persistent that it's not a girl group. Like, to any events we do, it's open to anyone. Like, we want to host an event in November for International Men's Day, because it always gets, when is that? When do we celebrate our day? Like, whatever. I want to do an event on that, but I want it to be open to the badass girls to turn up. But I want to encourage more men to come to that conversation. Again, just to chat about it. But I think it's very interesting. I've been called out a few times, being like, "How can you be the co-founder of Badass.gal?" And I'm like, why can't I? I've got to be part of the conversation, surely, to help make a change or something.
Yeah, this is it. With gender equality, it's about everybody being involved in the discussion actually about pushing it forward. And I'm aware that we're kind of running out of time. I'm just really enjoying chatting to you guys, and we're going over a bit, and I want to allow time for people that have some questions they want to ask you. So just a quick one that I want to touch on is with Badass.gal. Some people might refer to that as like a side hustle, and I do lots of stuff with D&AD and side hustle. So would you say that Badass.gal is something that's elevated your careers, the fact that you've been involved in that as well?
Yeah, I'd say it has probably helped us. I mean, if we're completely honest, when we started it, we never saw it kind of becoming what it is. And I think, you know, there's a number of people that off the back of it we've met and have to thanks to kind of connecting us to people who have helped amplify it. But yeah, I think, like, you know, just I think working with the Young Creative Council and with Badass.gal, it had, both of them have had, I'd say, probably a significant impact on our careers to getting where we are today. And I'd like to think, you know, that there are juniors, there's midweights in the industry now who, if they are doing a book crit, they might turn to them and go, well, have you met with Danny and Charlotte? Because maybe we've helped them along the way. And, you know, I think whether we're DCDs, CDs, you know, top of our game, I think we'll always kind of have that element of giving back. So, yeah. That answers the question.
Yeah, I think definitely, like, in terms of, I think Badass.gal's done a lot for us, and I think we never really, like, it's one of those things. Badass.gal started as this kind of thing, we're like, oh, let's just do this experiment, and then it turned into this thing which then became like something that we can call our side hustle now. But I think sometimes I do think that we're known for more stuff like this than we are our work, but I think it's just because as people we're just so passionate about changing the industry and helping. Obviously we care about making the work, but ultimately I feel a lot better about knowing that I've helped improve the amount of young people working in advertising, or I've helped get someone get a job, than potentially that I've made someone sell more product, just because it's a more of a human thing, I suppose. But yeah, I think, like, side hustles, I always think, like, if anyone's wants to start them or has ideas for them, you just got to just not have too much of an expectation and just start it and just see kind of where it goes, whether that's registering the domain name and making a website, or setting up like your first event and just seeing, like, if no one comes, oh well, just give it a go. It's one of those things that we just started doing it in our spare time, and it just turned into a thing that suddenly we were like, oh, this is a bit of a thing now. We never thought, right, we're going to start Badass.gal, it's going to be this and this, and by this point we're going to be doing this. And I think, yeah, maybe some people do it like that, but sometimes it's just a bit more fun to work out as you go along.
I also think it's one of our favourite things, is like we're pretty entrepreneurial, and it's one of our favourite things to see in portfolios. Like, you can show me, hey, you've done this really nice ad for Coca-Cola, but if you've got a really sick side hustle idea or product that you want to invent, we also want to hear about that, because, as you say, like, advertising isn't just thinking, here's a print ad. It's thinking, hey, this product could be this. Or we've met creative teams that come up with ideas which were like, that could be an app, that could be, you could be selling that now, you've got a product here, why are you not doing this as a business instead? And yeah, it is incredible.
Yeah, I'm such a fan of them, and it's nice to see what people produce when it's not just the commercial work that's paying the agency's bills. And I like the fact they're also called like passion projects, and just seeing different avenues where creators can explore. But yeah, so I'm gonna get on to the Q&A, but thank you so much, guys. I can see why you're called some of the nicest people in the industry. Right, let's go on to the questions. So I'm wondering if it makes it harder to get hired if you come as a pair, and also what do you do if one of you wants to take a job and the other doesn't?
I think, to be honest with you, potentially it's easier to get hired as a pair from our experience, just because advertising's so traditional in that sense, that people still do work in pairs. That being said, though, there's like tons of agencies that hire hybrid single creatives. So I think kind of you're not at a disadvantage by being in a pair or not. It just depends on the types of agencies. I think traditional agencies most likely hire pairs because it's kind of how they function, whereas like digital kind of more new agencies work a bit more fluid. So they've got single creatives that they might pair up one week and then swap around. So I think you're kind of at no disadvantage one or the other. But in terms of disagreeing, that's where I suppose you need to think about the person you're working with, because we've, I suppose, never really had that problem because we've always liked same agencies, the same kind of vibe and the work that they produce. So we've never had to, I suppose, disagree. But you just need to understand, I suppose, if that person you're working with, why they don't want to work at that place, and if it's kind of to do with the work, or if it might be because of I don't know, other reasons. You just need to get to the bottom of that and understand if that is something that you would then agree with or not. And then if not, then potentially, if you don't agree on that, then you might have different sort of career ideas anyway. So yeah, it's just good to talk about it and just work out, I suppose, why you would not want to work there.
And another question is there an age limit for Badass.gal, and is it limited to advertising?
No, like we haven't really said there's an age limit as such. We try to feature students we usually say senior people. We'll do weeks where we'll put in kind of like role model weeks and stuff like this. But yeah, no, there is no age limit.
Yeah, we don't really like to say to someone, no, you can't be on there, even though like Badass.gal was obviously born from the Young Creative Council, which is all about, I suppose, that kind of sort of younger, but I say younger because some people can be mature students, so it's more entry level, I suppose, the way it was born. But then, like Danny says, we've done weeks where we've done role model weeks, or people that like are more senior that you should aspire to. I mean, one week when we were doing it every single day and we didn't have anyone, I mean, we put me on there. So there's like, we would never like not put someone on there because they're older at all. And I think that the industry does have an issue the complete opposite way around, with kind of more senior people than like older people coming into the industry. There is both, we're sort of fighting both ends, but we chose to kind of do what we knew, which was kind of helping entry level. But I think if anyone wants to nominate anyone, and regardless of age or kind of level, there would be a place for them with Badass.gal. And advertising, it's more limited to like the creative industries, like not just advertising. We've had like people on there that have sort of started their own company, or they're sort of photographers or videographers, people in tech. So it's just more anyone that you believe is doing something creative, like costume design, like anything like that, because ultimately we want to create this database of people that are creative, that if anyone's looking for someone, they can find someone. So by all means, nominate them, and then we'll just have to make a decision, but most likely it'll be
yeah. I think the most important part is just the creative part of it, really.
Okay. And so someone here said, I've had quite a lot of different creative partners, but no luck finding the right person so far. Do you think London-based advertising will shift towards hiring solo creatives rather than teams on a junior level? And second question is, singlecreatives.com, when's it going to be live? Apparently it's been down at the moment.
So I'll just address that one. I'm pretty sure Andy at the moment he's attempting to do the website up a little bit.
Okay.
So that will be back up and running. I don't have a date, but I want to say soon. So
okay, so watch this space kind of soon. But the main question was, will it ever shift towards hiring solo creatives rather than teams on a junior level?
I think there will always be space for both. I think there's a number of agencies that hire more single solo creatives, and there's a number of agencies that like to hire teams. I think there's a valid argument for having both. I don't know if there's a time where it will swing more to having solo creatives or not. I just think it's doing your homework a little bit on the agencies you're looking at and understanding, okay, these guys hire solos, I should apply there first. That's not saying don't go to a place that only hire teams, because I think it's still worth having that conversation, because sometimes you'll find that there'll be a solo copywriter, for example, in the building, and they're actually looking for a solo art director to pair them up, whether that's on a permanent basis or a temporary basis. So yeah, that is my stay on it.
I also think that like agencies do hire on you and your work. So say an agency's never had a single creative before, but you are like shit hot creative, like you are amazing. I think there's no reason why they wouldn't consider you if you go in there and say, this is my book, I really want to work here and this is why. I can't, of all the agencies I've ever known and people I know, they would never say, oh no, you're not a team, go away. So I think it's just about being confident in your ability. And if there's one agency that you properly like would dream to work at, then give it a go. Like go there and ask them and say, look, I work by myself, but this is what I can do. Because we've known like people that have worked by themselves, like at Iris, everyone was in a team, but then there was a few people that ended up just coming in by themselves and they were amazing. We all kind of worked with them a bit. So there's definitely a place for that. And I think like that was like 6 years ago now. So I think the industry's changed a lot. So yeah, don't worry.
Yeah, I fully agree with you there, Charlotte, that if you are incredible, agencies will find room for you. They'll make room for you. Like every industry leader that I've interviewed that run their own agency, they've said that actually they're not going to turn away exceptional talent. So last question is, people have said it's great to team up with someone who's completely different to you. In reality, do you see that working, or is it quite rare?
Charlotte loves Twitter. I like Instagram more. Charlotte doesn't like camping. I'll go camping. Like me and Charlotte are very similar in many ways. We're also very dissimilar in many other ways. Like I don't think no one's 100% compatible. So and always having that kind of difference of opinion, difference of thought, difference of style it's a must really in the creative industry, because hell, me and Charlotte were both the same person. Well, it doesn't really work as a team. You know, the idea is we collaborate, we chat about things. Charlotte will say something, I go, no, but what about this? And Charlotte will go, yeah, but what about doing that instead? That, wherever we were the same, and we were like, oh yeah, that's a cool idea. Why you wouldn't hire us? Like, you know, it's part of our process. So yeah, I don't think.
I think there's a difference between people. As long as you've got the same goal, it's fine. I think you can be completely different people, but when it comes to work, as long as you care about the same things and want the same things, then it shouldn't matter that you're two completely different people. But if you're completely different people who disagree, some people are like, you're like super into digital and they're like, no, everything needs to be a print ad, then that's probably not going to work. But I think, yeah, as long as you've got that kind of same goal and same like sort of thought process in terms of things you think about and like, but then you can be completely different people. So I mean, I think it's important to get this sort of balance right, because like Danny says, if you're two of the same people that like the same things, you're just going to make the same work. And I think sometimes, especially if you look at advertising, you can tell that sometimes adverts have been made by certain types of people and it's just the same thing over and over again. So I think whereas some of the better adverts you see is because they've been created by a team of different people. So it is important that you're different, but you still get on ish.
Well, it's like that whole going from amazing.gal to Badass.gal, you know, by having someone you can bounce ideas off of and just elevate it, that would make it. But
why my thing have been like, yeah, I love working in a team because of that, being able to bounce things off. So yeah. Obviously I'm a massive advocate for creative teams.
But yeah, so I'll end it there, guys, but thank you so much again for your time and for talking to me today, and I hope everyone that watched got a lot out of this. And I know someone asked a question about where do you find all of these. Just go on like Young Creative Council website and it's all those resources there for everything that you'll need, and feel free to tweet about us, or if you enjoy the event, pop it on Instagram and we can share it. But yeah, free
to message us as well. As we say, we'll get back at some point. and we can message you even more links and stuff. So
yeah. Okay, thank you guys.
Thank you so much, Nikki, and thanks everyone
Thank
for
you.
joining. It's been fun.
Yeah, definitely. Take care. Bye bye.
Bye guys. Bye.